So it doesn't matter. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Moffett, and I forgot my script. There we go. And I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the Asheville Downtown Commission for April 14th, 2023. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, downtown commissioners currently fill 3 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and the hotel projects outside of those areas. The Downtown Commission also has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of Design Review. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For anyone out there with us today, welcome. At this time, I will go through and introduce all our committee members. As I do the roll call, please say a quick hello, and I would like to welcome Nur Edwards and Eva Michelle Spicer, our new city appointees, and Megan Rogers. She is technically our new county appointee, but she served with us before as the Asheville Downtown Association representative, and Jessica joined us last time. So welcome to all. And so I'll just go around the room. Just say, oh, hey, Sage. Just say a quick hello. Nur?
Hi, I'm Nora Edwards.
Hello, Jessica Hendricks.
Hello, Sage Jordan.
I'm Eva Michelle Spicer.
Good morning, Cal Frankfurt.
Good morning, I'm Robin Rains.
Good morning, Andrew Fletcher.
Good morning, Stephen Lee Johnson.
Morning, Megan Rogers.
Good morning, Ricardo Lucejo.
Good morning, Dana Frankel, Staff Liaison to the Downtown Commission.
You could say hello.
Hey, I'm Steph Dahl.
Very good. Avery asked, or someone, maybe Ricardo, asked me to remember, you all did great, but remember to speak into the microphones. We can hear each other, but we are streaming, and it's helpful if we speak into the microphones when we speak, so everybody else can hear us.
Can I get a sound check? This one doesn't have a light on. Oh, it's working.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds good. Everybody want to do a sound check?
Should have a light
That's fun. All right, to help our audience follow along, I will state each section of the agenda aloud. And we will move on. First item is our approval of minutes. You should have had an opportunity to look at our draft action minutes from our March 10th meeting. Are there any comments or revisions to the draft action minutes? Awesome. Is there a motion to approve? Going once.
A motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. We'll keep going. We do not have any public comment submitted prior to, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. And we will just address any public comment as we go in person. So we have 2 main items of business, our project review for Carter Street Hotel, and then we're going to discuss our upcoming special safety meeting for special meeting for public safety. So I think Clay Mitchell is going to present the Carter Street project. You have the floor, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clay Mitchell. I work with Will Palmquist in the current planning. What we have here is, let me get something up here. What we have here is a very slow computer as it loads the image of the hotel facility. This is between Carter and Ann Street. There you go. That's the first floor. See if I can get a picture. If you're familiar with the area where the Embassy Suites Hotel, I believe, is being built, is across the street, and to the south of that, there's currently a parking lot there that is fenced with vertical metal fencing. You've probably seen it. This is an 8-story building. It's been through the technical review committee. We've received submission comments and responding to our concerns, and this is scheduled for the Design Review Commission next week. So this is an 8-story building. It has 2 stories of parking, 6 stories of hotel use, and then 2 stories of residential uses on the 7th and 8th floor. And then on the top is a rooftop deck with a restaurant, eating and drinking establishment. There are also, there is any eating and drinking and activation for the hotel lobby down on the 1st floor on Carter Street. and the main entrance to the hotel is on Carter Street. The residential entrance is actually on Ann Street, and the new plans are now showing leasable space on the first floor, which was a response to the TRC meeting to create activation along Ann Street. What you see is compliant 10-foot wide sidewalks, street trees. On Carter Street, the street trees can be large maturing trees because there are no utilities. On Ann Street, there's utility lines going down Ann Street. So those are the smaller maturing trees, and that's why you see the different sizes on the plants. So let me get some images here.
Did you say they are adding the retail on the street, or they are considering?
Oh, they did, yes.
They did. That's great.
But that's not reflected on the current submission yet?
It is,
It
on
is.
this one, yeah.
Okay.
Here's the floor plan. Sorry, I wasn't touching it. This is killing me.
And I think staff or Dana, didn't we with the hotel overlay district, there's a requirement that I think 50% of it has to be habitable space on the ground floor, retail, commercial. Is that right?
Let me check on that. I'm not,
Okay.
I don't know that offhand, yeah.
It was a big idea when we were reviewing the
Yeah.
changes, because we like to say, if it's just a hotel, then no one ever enters that building from the community. But if there's a store there, they sure do.
We're gonna check right now to see.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, why don't you ask Clay? I think.
Council's just looking at that way.
She was asking Clay, if the hotel overlay district requires that 50% of the ground floor is activated.
Yeah.
Correct. It does, and it is allowed to be aggregated between the frontages.
Yep.
And so what you're seeing here is the Carter Street facade. So this is the hotel entrance side. The building masses onto Carter Street. You'll see that it has a lower connection to Ann Street. It has the street wall at 2 floors, which is required in the central business district, and then a step back, and then the remaining of the building going up vertically. This is floor plans of the 2 levels of parking. This is the first floor, again, Carter Street to the south of the plans. You see the kind of vehicle entrance. There's a small roundabout. There will be valet parking, and then that will get the cars down below. On the back, the yellow area is part of the hotel activation, and actually below that is where the leasable retail space is going to be on Ann Street. And then as we carry up through the building, these are just the floor plans, you'll see, come on, baby.
I have a question on that 50%.
Yeah,
If it's okay.
go ahead.
So the 50% requirement is that it's actually activated or that it's reserved for activation?
I don't think the language of the UDO differentiates, but there is space. Now you can see it quickly before the computer decides it doesn't want to show us. That back area,
Right.
there's a depth requirement of 20 feet, and so that's what you're seeing right there.
Tal, we can't require them to have, open something there, but yes, we're reserving the space for it.
I'm asking because I was at the Elements Hotel, and I guess that they needed to have the space, but they couldn't actually use the space. So what they ended up with was just a closed area where there is no parking and no retail.
That's too bad, maybe they should have coffee for their customers.
They tried, they couldn't get
Yeah.
approval on the kitchen.
The
So I'm trying-
requirements during the review process for the element were different than the requirements now. So I think we just had a requirement for a certain amount of fenestration, like windows for a portion of
Yeah, it depends on when that was
the
permitted, because
frontage. Yeah,
the new ordinances went into place in 2020. And that one might have been permitted in 2018 or something, I don't know.
Yeah, so I probably should have taken a step back and explained how the ordinances work for hotels now. So this is located in the central business district and the hotel overlay, which entitles applicants to secure what's called a level 2 review, which means it does not go to the city council for conditional zoning, as long as it's below 115 rooms or below. And I believe there's a couple other triggering points. And that includes compliance with a public benefits table, which secures some type of either green certification for the building, contributions to reparations or housing funds. And if the applicants go through that process, they then don't have to appear before the council for conditional zoning. So that's why this is in this process. The other unique treatment is that these applications are required to appear to the design committee and also get an affirmative vote from that committee, which is different. Normally, it's mandatory appearance, voluntary compliance. This is the different way. Sorry about that. I should have provided that in the first part.
No, you're good.
So what you're looking at here are kind of, kind of contextual elevations. In starting at the lower right is from the south, looking up Carter Street. So this is the kind of main hotel frontage. The entrance is at the top where that traffic circle underneath the building is. You can see the elements. You can actually see the difference between the hotel uses and the residential uses. The residential uses have open decks, whereas the hotel, we can't trust hotel residents to have access to outside. And then on the top, you can see the what is the back, more or less, but there's windows of the restaurant deck. The restaurant deck will be open to the south, where the views are most prominent. On the top two images are Ann Street. So you can see the southern part of Ann Street is the entrance to the residential portion of the parking in the site. And then you can see the activated space on the first floor is the leasable space. And kind of on the second floor is, I think it's shown as conference rooms on the plan. So fenestration, which is actually active, it's not false fenestration. And there's a room behind that. And then on top of that, I believe is outdoor amenities for both the hotel and the residents. And that's kind of the building there. Any questions? And I looked at your matrix that you use, and to the extent that I felt comfortable providing you kind of objective observations about the materials submitted, how that comports with your matrix, and other things which are entirely discretionary and defer to your expertise, I left as the question. So any comments that you have or concerns, I will take back to Will, and we'll discuss that with the design review committee.
And so for our new members, just to reiterate, you can, this matrix is just a way to kind of go through some of the things that we generally talk about. You can bring up anything you want. We will specifically address the design at the design review committee next week, but if you see things in the design, like you're like, why is this facade so long and the same, or whatever it is, just as, then you can go ahead and bring that up, and we'll make sure and bring that up at the DRC. Does that make sense? Okay, very good. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things I noticed is we have a hilly city, and so ground floor is we may have an entrance at ground floor on the high side of the building. We kind of lose that ground floor activation on the low side of the building because there's another floor there and it's not activated. It's a parking deck. So this is just sort of a general comment. How do we deal with that from a not in its particular case, but there are cases that way where the topography and the intention are sort of in opposition to that ground floor activation. And we get these, I think really part of the idea of having these 10-foot sidewalks mandated is because we're intending to activate this. A parking deck doesn't need 10 foot of sidewalk next to it necessarily, but businesses and pedestrian activation does. So, how is there a way that we can kind of learn from this a little bit?
Because you don't support the activation in this case?
No, I do support the activation, but compliance to the letter, which is great, may also may only exist on the high side of a building and not on the low side.
Clay, can you pull up A200 in the revised sheet? Just scroll to that one. You scroll back down and show that main, I think it's Carter sheet. Other way, sorry.
Yeah.
They've got a diagram. Keep going. A200. One more. That one right there.
This one?
Yeah, that one. So that one, no, one more. I'm sorry. That's the
That's
back.
okay.
That's there we go, right there. So that one shows, I think, what Andrew's talking about. If this building were, along Biltmore Avenue, which goes down, and we had 50-foot blocks, every piece of that would work to activate the pedestrian entrance, right? So that on the left-hand side of the image, you know, where it's getting basically below the main grade level, and they've got things like fire pump room and things like that for the parking deck, that's now unoccupied, and for the future of this building, because that's a difficult thing to move, will never be occupied. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is there a, you know, now our ordinance doesn't necessarily address that currently. Our ordinance, you know, just, we strike a grade plane, and that does not take into account the granularity, I think, that some of our other, documentation is asking for when we're talking about street activation. I think that's what Andrew's.
Yeah.
What is the concern or the suggestion, that it would all be retail to work with? Okay.
Well-
Because we did attempt that at first, and this was something that came up and was discussed at council when we were doing the moratorium and stuff, and the example was the Hyatt on the corner of Montford and Haywood Street, because that, at one point was, remember, Three Brothers Pizza, we all loved it, right? So lots of people went there, and then it became a hotel, and no one from the community ever went there again, because the entire parcel was extracted from local use. So adding retail on the bottom put it back in the public realm, at least that stamp of a footprint, right? So that's where the idea came from, and we hit a lot of pushback on 100%, because I think, I mean, as someone in construction myself, there are some utilities and stuff that are often not there and need to be there for design reasons. So the medium was 50%, but it could always be tweaked and stuff. It probably is a greater process of the ordinance review.
Well, I'm just looking at the application, when the ground floor, it may be at the actual ground floor on one side of the building, but actually, if extended across to where the grade drops, it may be far from the ground floor, which is, I think, kind of what we have in this case. So this is just a place, I think, you know, while you can get compliance out of this to the letter of the law, we may be missing something as far as that sidewalk activation for the extent of the building in a long,
Right.
in a long block with a real grade. And so this may be something that could be tweaked in the future to get better, you know, to get our outcomes to better line up with our intentions. But but in this case, I mean, I can see that they are compliant with the letter of the law, but the grade sort of.
In other words, that whole left side of the building, that would be a separate building if it was, you know, multiple parcels, and it would have grade access all the way at the bottom, whereas now you're 16, 20 feet above is that, whatever that is.
Yeah, your ground floor is actually on the ground here, and it would be like a third story, second or third story at least, you know, the farther you go across that hill. So that is, a function of the length of the building and our topography. I mean, we constantly run into problems with our topography and trying to get zoning rules and to work effectively across a lot of different situations.
Well, I would like to just say as a general note, I'm going to expect all planning staff to fill out our matrix from now on. This is really good. Ben, make a note of that. Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Well, do we have any other questions for staff regarding this? So we've got at least a concern about the application is meeting the letter of the law regarding the 50% street activation, whether it's meeting the spirit is a different question. Go ahead.
I just want to encourage, I'll be at the design review meeting, but this A205 sheet that's showing so much expansive concrete, maybe y'all can help there.
A205.
A205 bottom right, yeah, or those bottom north and south. Just, you know, now maybe I can't see it in context, but maybe there's buildings abutting. I don't think there are though. Yeah, anyways, just a thought.
Yeah, it's not that. I was going to go there. That's not going to pass us. We're not doing.
It's interesting.
It's
a progress drawing. It
Don't
says.
tell me it's a mural, please.
I was wondering if that's where it was going to land.
Or I'm going to lose it.
Right.
Lose it.
Is that a stairwell?
Yeah, Yeah,
That's what
well,
this-
so most of the time you get, there's restrictions on how much openings you can do close to a lot line, you know, because you expose the building and other buildings to danger to itself. That's a building code requirement. So a lot of times when they push them up to the lot line, but I don't understand all of it
Yeah.
that way. And even when it's not, even when you don't necessarily have openings, there are things you can do architecturally other than a blank wall.
What is the property that's adjacent to that south wall? Is it Aho?
To the south?
To what?
Yeah,
So
so
Aho.
to the
So
south
Aho is
is
on the
Aho,
other-
yeah,
so
and to the north is the
That
Salvation
concrete wall
Army.
would be facing Aho.
Yeah, one of the concerns
Maybe that's
we
why.
brought up in technical review was the dumpsters were located immediately adjacent to Aho, and they've now pulled that to the Carter Street side.
So one of the ones you didn't really fill out is, there's several on here that you told us what the, alignment with parking multimodal, economic development, we talked about that a little bit. Livability is kind of up in the air for me because we all know that those residential units on the upper floors are probably not going to be sold to, that's for a different clientele than most of the people that live in the city of Asheville currently.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would be skeptical that you'd even get full-time residents in those units.
Maybe, but okay, that's, I mean, at least they've got some residential, I like to see that. And we can talk about the urban design piece. Sustainability, environmental, what, if anything, are they doing regarding any kind of sustainability goals? They didn't click any of that for public benefit, correct?
Yeah, I don't believe, personally, I don't believe I have enough information from them to know if they're trying to achieve any kind of green building certification or anything along those lines.
Okay, that's one thing we'd like to know more of, especially
Yeah.
by the time we get to next week.
Okay, yes.
So when we separated design review from this body, it was so that this commission could still talk about impacts. And I'm curious, and you may not know this answer, but when, as part of the rubric that an applicant fills out to build a hotel, they have to choose some things that they might do that have community impacts. Do you know, I think there's one line on that rubric that says you have to choose between contributing some kind of cash to either the reparations fund or the housing trust fund.
Right.
We know,
That's what he's checked on the first box.
do you know which one they did? That's what I was wondering.
You have affordable housing reparations checked.
But
and
Group
maybe-
2.
which one, though? Or is it both?
I don't know.
Group 2, option 3, $6,000 per room for affordable housing for 210 points. Is what he's got listed on the,
I'm just wondering where they made the contribution. Which of the two?
I thought it was, oh, I see, I'm sorry, yeah. Which one, yeah.
It's all, I mean, I can find out later. I just didn't know if you knew offhand. You don't have to look at length.
Well, I think this is
Yeah,
this is the forum to discuss it more than DRC.
So their proposal is to provide, you're right, it says affordable housing / reparations.
Because it makes them choose. I don't know if maybe they can split it. I'm not even sure, right?
Yeah, I can get back to you on that one, I'm sorry. And then the other one is the neighborhood improvement that they're contributing on.
And both of those are just money.
Yes, correct.
Public safety, so our APD has offered to kind of review plans for public safety items, is my understanding. Am I remembering that right? Do you know if this developer has done that?
Do not, but that is a great suggestion, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
good, you're
I
good.
do not, we obviously push all plans through every department in the city, and
This is a
traditionally.
new thing, and that's
but-
not a checkbox.
Yeah,
But since
it's-
we're doing hotel stuff, and
Yeah.
hotel, and obviously the location of this one, where it's located on that part of town, that seems to me that would be this would be one we would really want to see the developer do that with APD.
Yeah, absolutely, and given recent events, that makes even more critical.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, again, sort of going out to the global look at whether our zoning rules getting us land use policies and land use outcomes that are, that we like, that are good. I can't think of any level 2 projects that have been built in the hotel overlay other than hotels. And at some point that's not.
Housing, there's housing, big housing.
There has been housing
Lots of it.
on the, okay, well,
I've been saying too that, this commission set out, I think it was 3 years ago at our retreat and said, we want to see a boom of housing in downtown, and that's what we're about to see. There's a lot of housing.
yeah, there is a lot of housing.
I would say more
That's-
housing than hotel rooms.
I hope that is true because there's a lot of staff that's required to run all these places. And if they can walk to work, then one of our other chief concerns, parking, is diminished. So that is, I really hope to see that. That was one of those concerns I had with the map, is that are we going to get anything other than hotels in the map? And if we are, then I think that is a positive. I still think the map is a little too big, and I'd like to make it more of a jack-o'-lantern than it currently is, but.
Did you see on
the
the very first sheets, it describes, it's not the one posted, the other set of sheets, it describes in detail how many employees they think they'll have, maximum at any moment. It's now on the design sheets, which I think is interesting.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
really
it's
good.
helpful to identify, what the parking looks like. They say this particular project says the maximum amount of employees working at a time is 60.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of affordable housing that's required, because most of those positions are going to require affordable housing, I imagine.
Maybe not.
Other than a few managers and things like that, probably.
One of the rubric options is paying living wages as well. So we'll see.
So far, we've had a discussion about the activation or the 50% habitable commercial space. We've talked about the kind of 2 blank ends of the building. They designed the front and the back, but not the sides. We've talked about, I see some public safety things that I'd like to know how they're addressing. I don't know how they're doing any kind of site lighting, how they're lighting. There's no lighting shown on the front of the building for the front sidewalk. I'd like to see, something addressing that.
Is that because our current guidelines don't call for it? You designers over there, did you know that design guidelines made it into the budget?
Can you repeat that what?
Yeah, our current guidelines
Yeah.
don't call for site lighting, or really have any standards on such, and this is, Miss Kimmy. So this is something that, we need to address, and we need to bring up as something that, one, it needs to be incorporated into the design. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. I think this is appropriate. Has this developer built anything in Asheville before that we know of? Any other hotels or?
I don't know the answer to that question. I believe this developer has a second application that is percolating through the pre-application process, 2 parcels to the south.
Isn't
2
it-
parcels to the south, so maybe
It
that's,
says Patel is the contact.
okay. So just looking under the LLC, it's like, maybe it's specifically formulated for this project, but that answers the question about the south facade, which is what we're gonna see most of, I think. So we know that that's gonna be a big issue at design review. My only other comment is that, once again, our site and the way this impacts the general public and the public realm is meeting absolute bare minimum standards. There are standards, and they appear to be meeting them. But we see what the product is with that when buildings, hotels specifically, residential, meet those, the spaces or the pedestrian spaces are dead. I'd love to do a walk around downtown and look at these dead spaces, but building hits 10-foot concrete sidewalk, street tree, done. And this is ODA Architecture is a powerhouse firm, and they do phenomenal work. And this is definitely not
it.
anything that's trying to be special. And I encourage everybody to kind of reach out to design review. If you have some specific thoughts about
There's
What
nowhere,
you-
there's nowhere to sit, there's very little greenery, and I would just say that, to chime in with that, from a design perspective, as soon as you zoom in past the building facade, you see the organization and the detail, but as soon as you zoom in past the entire facade to the pedestrian level, the detail's gone. There's just not enough there.
And this is at the top of a very challenged and troubled stormwater conveyance area. We know that the city is investing a lot of money in bringing this back online and working on it, but it's at the very top of a historically challenged stormwater way that works its way into Kleeman Forest. And again, bare minimum standards are being met. And you know what I'm talking about, most of you, green roof, but seriously, and I think there needs to be discussion about that. Do we accept the bare minimum standard? And, a nice glitzy new hotel that looks really great and clean for a couple of years? And then what's it gonna look like and be like in 10 years?
This will be voted on.
Right?
And it will require your committee's
Right,
approval.
yeah, so, yeah, they're coming for formal review Thursday.
Well, and that goes back into the, alignment with downtown master plan and living Asheville plan. We want more than minimum standards when we're looking at this stuff.
Yeah. I think when you're looking at hotels specifically, because they're the beneficiaries of, a $40 million advertising budget every year, that is such a boon to their profit models that when you're looking at these bigger asks like green roofs and things like that, they can support it. They're getting support from another direction. So it is that particular industry is already getting so much benefit from government programs out there that when you're looking at saying, can we get these types of things that are more expensive and have public benefit, they can. Of all industries, they can support it the most. So I would absolutely encourage you guys to turn the screws to get some better public outcomes.
Well, and one last note, for all of us who work for private developers, we know they're not gonna go beyond the minimum requirement unless they have to.
Yeah.
And I know, we know. So,
Hey, our design review folks, are you all keeping a list as you go of things that might be good updates to the ordinance? Because I think we've had you in place about a year now, a little over. And I think we reviewed the hotel, we did a 6-month review, and then we're gonna look at it again in a year. But I think it'd be really helpful to hear from y'all. If there were some ideas that had come from reviewing half a dozen of these. Yeah, maybe just keep a list as you go. And when it's substantial, let me know.
So how do we respond to the Living Asheville other plan alignment question as a downtown commission?
What, do you have a rubric? I don't have. Where is this?
It's on the,
I didn't even have that the whole time.
Yes, thank you again for that, Clay.
Impact matrix, got it.
And I can't, Robin, is that a question you were asking?
Just in general. That one seems a hard
Fancy.
one to answer to me. I don't know.
We can't dictate uses really, right? I mean, we have to respond to what's there. Is that what you're asking?
Well, does the project align with the aspirational goals under the theme? I mean, that one, does it fit with the Asheville we're seeking 20 years from now? Does it align?
Well,
with
to
the needs
to
of
me,
the-
livable built environment and things like that's the kind of stuff I hear Stephen Lee kind of saying is that, we want spaces that people inhabit and want to be in, not just sidewalks that people pass by occasionally. That's at least part of it. I mean, there's a lot more to it, I think. And I don't have enough information to answer your question.
Well, no, I mean, it's good that there's some residential included because this particular thing talks about population growth. So that'll be.
How many rooms is it total?
So, with the uses, why would an Asheville resident ever come to this facility other than to work here?
Maybe there's a good restaurant on the bottom is all I can hope, but yeah. or a coffee shop, something. But
There's
yeah.
a speakeasy, which is kind of funny. They usually don't advertise illegal drinking establishments, which is what a speakeasy is.
How
I
many,
think they have to address the public safety one before we can answer that, because I'm not going there.
Okay.
fair enough. How many hotel rooms is it? I'm not seeing it. How many?
150,
What?
150.
115.
That's the upper limit on,
Yeah.
on level 2 approval without CZ, right?
Number of rooms? I think it just dictates a different part of the matrix, right? It's not the max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't really talked about the Ann Street elevation either, or what's going on back there, correct?
I think he said it was the residential entrance.
It just seems dead.
Yep.
There was wasn't there a commercial piece on that?
that's where the retail space is supposed to be, right?
Wait, this north end has some yard and stuff. What's all this?
There's set, I mean, it's set back though, the actual,
Yeah.
or is the retail in that front thing?
It looks like it, yeah. So on the, what sheet is this? Doesn't even have a page number.
But where's the grade entrance? Because it's doing that funny thing again.
Yeah, I believe the leasable, what's labeled as retail is where the cursor is on this level. And then above it is conference space for the hotel. And
Okay.
above that is the pool and a deck.
Conference space is good.
Yeah, it just, I mean, I'm getting into design stuff, but that is a boring building. It should, I mean, it looks like it should be its own building instead of just, a rump for the main building.
Before it was like a gate, remember? And
Yeah,
we had them,
yeah.
we told them they needed to add some
That's
heft.
good.
Which it's better than it was, but it's not there yet. That should have been a design in and of itself, that piece. And it can be, related to what they're already doing, but it doesn't look like a building to me.
First it goes to a taller gate.
Yeah.
So, do we know if the design team and developer are going to be showing in person the design review?
I don't know,
Okay.
but I would highly recommend it. If
Yeah, I'm
they're
not gonna-
watching this.
Yeah.
But I assume, I have not been here long enough to see but a couple design review committee meetings.
Okay.
And the design teams have always been present.
All right, so personally, I would definitely recommend they be here. There's going to be a lot better engagement and feedback. It's going to be very difficult to do it online with them. So.
Noted.
Do you know if they're looking at any of the 24 housing units being workforce housing at all?
If they are,
Yeah.
the applicants, I'm not aware of any effort that they have taken in that regard.
Is this A102 sheet the only footprint level we have for the hotels? It doesn't even identify them as hotels, but I wanted to see the footprint, because for the design review committee, one of the things I always think about in these long-term things is that the long-term plan is it even convertible to housing later, or is that an ordeal? Like when you're looking at the designs, I don't see any real designs for the hotel rooms. I just see one aerial. There it is, you just passed it.
This one?
Nope, next one. Those are condos. Those are good. This. Nope.
That-
One more, wait.
That's a wrong question.
I'm sorry, it's not me, it's the
Yeah, yeah.
computer, trust me.
That
It
one.
just jumps
That one.
around.
Are those supposed to
Okay.
be the hotel rooms, those yellow?
They are.
blocks? Okay.
I
They're
mean,
not
you'd
good.
have to.
You'd have to do some internal demo, but yeah.
Right, you devise one of
Mm-hmm.
the, take a wall out,
Mm-hmm.
make each one.
Doable, yeah.
I mean, we,
Convertibility.
it reminds, that conversion would look something like that Aston Martin micro-housing project, where, I mean, the biggest challenge is kitchens, right? And so maybe shared space for a kitchen, and then you would have small units.
Or I was saying you could demo every other.
Into
Right,
housing.
and knock down a wall.
Just doable. Things to keep in mind with and I wouldn't even mind that being a future design recommendation.
The suggestion for when you guys are doing review on this is that on-site affordable housing, to me, would be more valuable than a contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund. So if that is a way to get to change that matrix and have.
They can do that.
On-
It's in the matrix.
It is in the matrix, because that is, to me, on-site is way more valuable, because that's where we need our workforce to be, where our work is. And, you know, if we get affordable housing money from this and we're spending it in South Asheville, that might be great in an overall numbers perspective, but how does that treat, what does that do to traffic and, you know, commute times and all this other
Well,
stuff?
it's also
emissions, everything.
today dollars instead of tomorrow dollars, and today dollars always.
Yeah, it's
buy
bird in
more.
hand.
Yeah, that's a great point. And with inflation, we've seen, you know, contributions at the beginning of this, beginning of this program already diminish in value by 10% or more, as far as buying power goes.
Well, we need to wrap this up. Are there any other comments or questions to staff that they can report back to the applicant? It's been a good discussion. Thank you.
No, but in the future, it'd be helpful to know some of those things that we didn't know for this to have a full impact discussion. Not your fault or anything. Maybe that rubric needs to speak more specifically to some of their answers.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, just for the sake of this group, to have a full discussion on the impacts, because this is the only time this group will see it.
Yep.
That it might be important to know some of the things that we didn't know, like who did they donate to, and are they looking at affordable housing? Those are the impacts I think this commission is more concerned with. And the developer may or may not have shared that by now, but it seems like they have to when they apply.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to, jump off the rails of what I actually know,
Yeah.
but I mean, when I looked at the public benefits table, and there's no distinction, and I'm not sure, it says housing/reparations. So I don't know
Yeah.
who determines which
They do.
direction. Oh, they do.
They
Okay.
do. We cannot tell them.
Okay.
They have to choose, by the way.
Okay. Then their application doesn't specify
Right.
at this
And
point.
I'm just saying in the future, you may want to know that.
Great.
So the developers are not required to come to any of these meetings, like the design as well, the design review.
Also an interesting one.
So we're still finding our footing on this.
I bet they're listening.
Yeah, I'm sure they're listening to this. We don't take a vote to approve at this.
Yeah.
At this, we just, we communicate back to staff, who communicates back to the developer. But anything that we talk about that would have to be incorporated, I think, would then go to DRC. Anything that Design Review Committee, and then, now that is, if they want to avoid council, that is mandatory compliance. But honestly, the way this works is that a hotel project that was going to council would still listen to DRC. So they really need to listen to DRC. So they generally don't come to this one anymore, which is
You could invite them and then
frustrating.
check a box on whether or not they accepted your invite.
That's true.
There is a placeholder in the memo to DRC that currently has a bunch of numbers that will be populated with what you said today. Will and I will work on that this afternoon.
Okay. Did I answer your question, Tom?
It did, but so if you think about it, like they're gonna attend and listen to the design review committee. So the impact conversation we're basically not having with the developer anymore, which is kind of like a sub-product of separating it. So,
Yeah.
Well, and that's a very good point, because in design review, we don't talk about impact.
Because it's not under my purview.
Yes.
One of the things I could recommend when we redo or update the hotel ordinance is that I think we need to have a vote in this body in order for them to continue to go. I think that's where it's going.
yes.
That you want here.
I'll just chime in a little bit. Appreciate the discussion. I think what is now part of the hotel development review process includes these public benefit type options for developers to pick and choose from. And part of the intention behind that is to kind of depoliticize some of these discussion points, not to say that they're not valid, but so that there's more predictability, more guaranteed benefit in these ways. I think there's still room to consider improvements to the process, so definitely hear where you all are coming from today, and it's something we can talk about, but I just want to point out that, every project isn't going to city council, and a lot of these discussion points are those more kind of like negotiation, political, gray area things.
Yeah, the process was certainly depoliticized for the applicants. However, the impacts have certainly not been depoliticized from the residents of Asheville. And so, like, this is, I think, is where we're like kind of running into this, because, you know, tomorrow's affordable housing crisis is gonna be is due to today's, you know, low-income jobs that are going up, so.
So to that point, maybe Tal and others, maybe what we need to do is make sure that we are communicating anything that can impact the design, public safety, if there's things that can align better with the Living Asheville plan. For example, we want, you know, a much better landscape design for public spaces, for the sidewalks, things like that. We can communicate that to them. I do think we should have some kind of representation from the applicant at these meetings, though, because this is just us talking to each other so far.
And you're half the DRC, so it seems like they'd want to, but.
Well, maybe what we need to do is the DRC just needs to put our foot down a little bit harder and say, you didn't come to the downtown commission, so.
You guys could just schedule the DRC meetings for right in the middle of the downtown.
Well, see, I mean, I wonder too, if they were just professionally asked, if they would simply attend. Maybe they didn't. You know, this isn't a required review, like, we're talking about it because we want to, right? But it's not a requirement in their process, so I wonder, they'd probably still come.
I think they would.
Yeah, I think most would, really, frankly. They may not even know it's happening.
Can we recommend it in the application? Like, should that be part of the application process, is to checking all the outer boxes? They at least see that there is, hey, are you planning on attending this? Yes, now. Then they can make a decision, or at least they know that they have the option to.
They are told that this goes to Downtown Commission for an impact discussion, right?
Yeah, it's in the UDO.
Yeah.
When we were doing this virtually, they were always on.
Yeah.
I mean, every time we talked about a project, the developers and architects were on virtually.
Okay.
They're just not gonna drive up from Charlotte.
Yeah, yeah,
If it's not required.
yeah.
Gotcha. It is expensive
me
to
how I know.
move teams. Yeah.
You know, I guess the issue there you have is just is a chicken egg issue. It's like you talk about the impacts first, you talk about the design first. They seem very inextricably linked to me. So it would be hard to decide which comes first.
Well, the reason,
conversations and
if I remember right, it's been a minute, but the reason we did things in this order is because we can talk about the impact, and then we can kick that to the board that has that up or down vote.
That may be the right way to do it then. I will say that I did not support pulling design review totally away from this body, or not totally, but, you know, into a different meeting with somebody because of this outcome that I foresaw. So I will say I have been consistent in this. I do miss that function of it, and so yeah, if there's any interest in undoing that part of it, I support that.
I wasn't here when that happened, but I think that I see the value of a group of professionals actually looking at this. I think maybe the order, maybe it needs to come back to this group for the vote, right? And then you get participation from everyone.
I don't think that's going to happen, guys, but I fought pretty hard at first to preserve design here, and I was kind of the stickler, and honestly, I've changed my mind since it's happened. I think the Design Review Committee has gone above and beyond anything I ever saw the Downtown Commission do as a group. The excellence at that table is remarkable. So I wouldn't currently support it going back now that I've learned. And I say that as someone who was staunchly opposed in the beginning. And I mean, it's been incredible what the Design Review has done. So I think what we have here, though, is a semblance of both being possible, in that half of your Design Review Board is on this committee, and I fought for that as well, and for council to appoint those people rather than being appointed by the own committee. And the goal there was to make sure that this body still had the ability to have this conversation and to feed ideas to the design review. I don't know that council is even looking at opening up the hotel ordinance. I think it would take a myriad of recommendations on design and, you know, some kind of changes for us to reopen it. But I hear you, and it was a long thought-out process, but I don't think there's interest in
Just to
going back.
clarify, I'm not saying we should I see the value in separation.
Yeah.
I just don't see the value of us talking with ourselves about something that cannot change. So like,
Well, but this, historically, just so you know, because I know you're fairly new, I have been in this room a dozen times when they took our advice and implemented it. So it actually does matter, whether they're required to do it or not. I have seen developers say, well, that was a good idea, and it was suggested, we'll do it. I remember Peter Alvarese's projects, he did that a lot. Yeah,
And again, my ask is not from a requirement, it's just for a dialogue. What I'm missing here is the dialogue with the developer.
Yeah.
Right? We have half of the questions that we don't really know, and we're never gonna talk about this again.
right.
Right, so that's the piece that is missing. It's not the voting, the
Okay.
decision, like,
I agree. Because the impacts do need to be heard by them, I think. And I hope they're listening today, but I agree that they should be available.
Yeah, I mean, these buildings are gonna last a lot longer than us. You kind of get one shot to get it right.
Yeah.
But to the earlier point about, if the issue is that we don't have, in this body, we don't really have the teeth to enforce that, right? So we can have the conversation with them. They can bring 10 people in here and we can all talk about it. But to the earlier point, they're not necessarily gonna do it unless they're required to. And if we don't have the ability to vote like Andrew is suggesting, or some sort of way for us to, in this body, to look at the impacts and, do a vote, do something with teeth on the impacts and then let the design, or we can pass it along to the design review committee and then increase their purview, right? Because the problem is that we can't, in design review committee, we can't really vote on these things, on the impact and whatever, because it's outside of our purview. And we've run into that issue.
And there's not really a legal avenue for an impact discussion that has some kind of requirements at the end of it. There's not a legal avenue. And the best thing we have is giving our input and encouraging them to do it. Before, when hotels were coming to council under a conditional review process, we heard that, and the conditional review process is kind of hazy. Like, can we, you have to come to agreement on the items, but you can have those conversations and say, well, this whole body, Downtown Commission, wanted 4 trees there, and I'd like to see it. But we don't have that anymore. I'd really, honestly, in all reality, I don't see us going back. And I don't say that to deflate your goals. I respect the goals. I just would be surprised if we went back.
I was very cognizant of that entire life cycle of the process,
Yeah.
sitting in this chair and seeing these things come by.
Yeah.
Trying to set up council, who's the ultimate vote maker too, even though we don't have the direct power here, trying to, throw some ideas in the mix for improvements that would hopefully get picked up by council. It didn't always work, but.
Now, what you do have the power to do, and this was going to be shared in my update later, and I have a feeling we're going to go wrong, and I'm going to have to leave early, so I'll share it now. In the draft budget for this upcoming year, design guidelines are in. I'm being assured that they're going to stay in. Thank all of my fellow councilwomen for getting on board with this. It's been 5 years of asking. But in that, this body will review to them. And things like lighting updates on the sides of buildings, I'm expecting that. I've already sent my list to Dana. This commission, over the last 7 years I've been involved, has created a list of things that we prefer to see. So that's where you'll gain some teeth, because you'll have input on the document that they have to adhere to or use as guidance, right? It's not always the UDO, but those guidelines do matter.
That's right. We need to move on, folks.
Yep, you do.
Good discussion. Thank you very much. Anything else you need from us?
I don't think so. I mean, I can just my exposure to North Carolina law is relatively new. You handle land use regulation in an interesting way. And some of the things that you're talking about is the potential that you would be in what's called a quasi-judicial mode. And that...
But we're really not.
Yeah,
We're not
you don't
We're
want
not a quasi, this is not, nor is DRC a quasi-judicial body.
But I hear you. The things that you're talking about are policy decisions that I think are important. And I know it's in our work plan, Will and Avery and I, looking at the types of developments that have come in the hotel overlay. We just haven't had enough, reporting that back to the council and talking about the public benefits table. So all of that is in the works. And I think that what you've shared with me today will help us significantly. You won't see it implemented on this plan, but I think you'll see it start to, gain ground as we move forward.
Thank you. Very good.
So thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And again, matrix filled out by the planning staff going forward. That was very good. Thank you. That was very good. Next up is our discussion on the Downtown Public Safety Special Meeting. And Stephen Lee, take it away.
Thank you. So as all the former members and new members, just so you know, at our last meeting, we discussed several items regarding downtown Asheville. There were a number of reasons that brought up the discussion, but we had a very good general discussion. We, in general, talked about some new City of Asheville initiatives and programs that continue to improve the safety and the overall experience downtown. Ben Woody, we really appreciate, as we stated last month, the really informative discussion you brought to our annual retreat. And I think all of us learned a lot of very positive things that are going on. And the discussion kind of centered around, the word needs to continue to get out. And we felt like that, we knew there are still ongoing serious challenges that we face downtown. But we acknowledged that there was a need to re-engage with businesses, business owners, landowners, stakeholders, residents, and directly enable the Downtown Commission to directly engage. We need people to be able to, we need to hear people share what they see going on, and we need to discuss in open, common and related issues. So at the last meeting, a subcommittee was formed and established to envision a possible framework for an event of some type, perhaps, that could take place. The committee has met several times since our last Downtown Commission meeting. Myself, Andrew, Tal, and Ricardo have been brainstorming, and we appreciate the insight from Councilwoman Turner and Chairman Moffitt. So we have some ideas, and Andrew's going to share some of this basic framework, and we're here to get feedback and comment.
So thank you, Stephen Lee. One of the things that wide public discussion, obviously, around downtown and the elements of public safety going around there. And, I think everybody's aware that the Chamber and TDA hosted a meeting, and a majority of council was I guess, RSVP to that meeting, which triggered a public notice. And the attendance was very high for that, so high that many people, including myself, could not get in. And I think what this is showing that there was a lot of demand from the public for engaging with institutions to work collectively and speak together about our experiences and what we know and what we can do together. So I know that there's been a lot of discussion about the enforcement aspects of public safety. There's also been, I think, a lack of discussion and many missed opportunities around the creation aspects of public safety. And that I think that is a significant difference. We tend to think of public safety as exclusively enforcement-based. Obviously, we've been having trouble with that. Right now, even with a blank check, the chief of police says that it's going to be 7 to 10 years before we can adequately enforce public safety. One of the questions I'd like to ask at this meeting collectively together with this group and with the wider public is, what can we do in the meantime? What can we do on this side of that 7 to 10 year window to work on the other aspects of public safety, including how community can create public safety with the help of the city and with the help of other stakeholders, businesses, and other institutions. So I'm sort of looking at a three-piece, a few different pieces here to what this meeting would do. First off, we would invite city staff to have to bring a presentation about what we're doing right now, what is in process, what is coming online, as far as those things go. So that means, cleanliness, downtown programming, things like this. And then to have public comments so that we can hear, both solicit ideas and ask folks, what their ideas are, and to learn about their experiences. And then to discuss what those missed opportunities are, what historically the Downtown Commission has been asking for, what ideas are on the table right now that we could possibly pick up and ask for action on, and hopefully resulting with enough consensus to get a resolution to send to City Council. And so I'm happy to toss it over to my fellow committee members, Tal and Ricardo, to sort of fill in from the discussions and things like that. I'm just one of 4 on that group. I think everybody should be heard.
I think you covered it pretty well. And, one thing that I brought it up before as well, and it's also an opportunity for us to, you know, we had talked about this during the workshop, you know, a couple of months back, how it's also an opportunity for us to go out and engage the, you know, the downtown community that we're supposed to be representing. And for us to look for ways that this body can also act on hopefully the initiatives that are produced from this meeting beyond this room.
And we acknowledge the fact that, you know, a lot of people downtown simply don't maybe read the newspaper or watch city council meetings or read the social media that the city of Asheville puts out, but I would bet that our new members are not aware of several really key initiatives that are in place right now. And we feel like that if we can get in a room with everyone and share these, Sage, I think you've been mentioning a term about momentum. I mentioned last month, I was walking down the sidewalk with a 73-year-old business owner, downtown Asheville, been here for 35 years, had all they could do was complain about downtown. Cleanliness, homelessness, was totally oblivious to any of the programs that are underway. I think it's, the meeting could be very positive, and I think a lot of people will walk away feeling very, very good about some of the programs that are happening, but Andrew, like you said, there needs to be a venue at this point where we can all come together, everybody has the opportunity to, and share what we're relating in things that are not being met right now. 7 years is a long time, and what was the thing in the news yesterday about, you know, heaven forbid this downtown violence that occurred. Tal, I don't know if you, I mean, I know that you've spoken very strongly about concerns about safety, and I think that every business owner downtown has that concern. Every resident does. Do we want to talk a little bit about what we were thinking about a framework for a meeting in terms of time frame, and then other members, if y'all could, Sage, I know you have a lot that you've shared with us as a subcommittee. Maybe there's some additional things you could add to the conversation.
I'm happy to. I also really, I think I've been saying this for a while now. I really want this board to feel empowered. I think that we are having a bit of a crisis of public safety, and I know as a leader, I feel responsible, but I can't go out there and fix it by myself. And there's momentum and group needs. Like I would like to see this body become a lot more vocal, to really wrap their arms around downtown as the only body that is specific to downtown.
Be careful what you wish for.
Listen, I fought to keep you on this seat.
I appreciate that.
Because I feel like the businesses are not quite being heard in the way that they need to be, and the entire 5-county area is relying on us. And I know I'm in a lot of meetings, there's a lot of great stuff coming together, so it is not all bad. I do think that businesses need a venue to be able to vent and explain their experiences, because so much has happened. And it was unfortunate that that one event was too small to hold everybody. I don't think that that was intentional, there just wasn't that much of an expected outcome. So bigger the better, opportunities to vent and feel heard, and then show and share ideas I think are important, because you're right, a lot of people are not aware of some of the things that are coming together. And I did share some stuff with the committee earlier in the week about some initiatives, like trying to blend some of the sheriff's department, trying to partner with the county in another way. For the last 3 years, the county has really been and becoming a wonderful partner on so many initiatives. And the sheriff's department is not experiencing the same staffing crisis that we are, so we are asking them to blend and help and supplement, and I believe it's going to come together. Specific to downtown, there are other things that we've learned around, and this is all going to come to light, but I learned recently that APD staffs 30 shifts a week at the call center, which is an important thing, right? Answering the 911 calls. However, there are other people that can do that would allow those 30 officers to be out on patrol. So can we tweak that, you know? At a budget level, the city council has isolated public safety as, well, first, the county commission and the city of Asheville made public safety their primary initiative, primary concern this year, which has never happened. But there are some initiatives on this next budget round to raise the pay for APD at a higher rate than the rest of the staff of the city. There are ideas around doubling pay for on-call shifts and what we call differential shifts, which are some like night shifts or off hours. just to fill gaps. I mean, these are little ground level things we can do when you get into like the minutia of how the department runs, but we have a crisis. And at our retreat, our budget planning retreat, we actually had the chief come and speak with us. And one of the questions I think our mayor asked was, if we gave you a blank check, could you fix it? And the answer was no. The answer was, instead of 10, it might take 7 years. So we're not in a, pay absolutely matters, benefit absolutely matters, but it's not the only item. And I know we have some members of the media here today, but I do think it's important that there is some acknowledgement that council has been vocal in support of APD, but it is never in the paper when we say it. So maybe that could be shared too. There's a lot going on. There's a lot coming, but I feel like this venue, I feel like this board holds enough concern, awareness, and is a collective body that can come right to council and do what we hope you will do, which is make recommendations and come to us with your input. And we actually specifically, I think in the charter of this, says that you'll bring businesses and partners and stakeholders to the table to make sure that the downtown community is represented. So, you're worried about empowering design review. I want you to empower yourselves to really fight for downtown right now, because I feel like that's what we're doing.
So quick note, we're going to at least go through 10. If y'all could stick with us, we're going to go a little bit longer today. Sorry about that. And Stephen Lee, if you don't mind sharing the subcommittee's ideas on a potential date and a potential format and a potential attendee list.
Okay, so I do want to mention 3 things that we've been carefully considering as well. One is staff time. We know staff, the plate is full, we acknowledge that. The second is location. We've got to determine a location and a date. That's 2 things. The third is, before this happens and before we move forward, we've got to clearly understand what we need this outcome to be. And I think that's been defined today. It's clear, positive engagement. So we have, because of the idea and concept of momentum, Asheville is very active right now. Business owners, everybody's here in town. We've expressed there's a very positive aspect to having some type of meeting in the next 4 to 6 weeks, preferably by the end of May. We've tossed around ideas for location. Obviously, there are benefits for being at a place like the Civic Center upstairs. There are some benefits for being on in a private location at a hotel ballroom. We'd love to have thoughts and responses on that. We do know that there would be a very carefully thought out effort to make sure invites were sent to everyone we could think of in terms of the stakeholders. A great example is what's happened with this College Street bike lane thing. Everybody knows about this right now. I'm talking, and it's chit chat, lots of good chit chat going on. So that's kind of.
I'm going to quote you on that.
Yeah.
Everybody's aware now.
So, Chairman Moffitt, that's kind of where we stand, and we're open.
And so is this a one-time thing? Because I would add that I'd love for this commission to have a regular outlet for businesses to come to you. Like if it's twice a year. Can we get an update from businesses? Come to make public comment, Some kind of regular.
May I ask how this is different than the 2 meetings that are happening next week? There's one at the Chamber on Tuesday, and then there's the Downtown Coalition for Public Safety on Wednesday.
Well, I think it's different because I didn't know about either of those.
Yeah.
Are you Chamber members?
No.
Yeah,
no.
That's first up.
the chamber
Well-
meeting, I think, is specifically talk about business improvement district, which is huge. I mean, they may, it's a huge discussion, very positive, but it's a very, very carefully, well laid out initiative. That's kind of its own moving target, but I think.
And that's what you're speaking to, right? That initiative, not public safety in general?
Well, there's a group of very passionate
Yeah.
citizens who have formed this, I forget what they call themselves, the Downtown Public Safety Coalition.
Yeah.
And there's a meeting on Wednesday for exactly this.
Yeah,
we're not
another
even aware.
positive reason to be
Yeah.
a member of the chamber.
That's a different,
Yeah.
that's separate. That's on Tuesday at
Yeah.
the Chamber. There's a downtown stakeholders roundtable.
Yeah.
And was it
It's
widely
the city.
inviting all businesses downtown?
Yeah.
Because I didn't get an invite.
The chamber.
But are you talking about the Coalition for Public Safety or the Chamber?
That's on Wednesday. Chamber's on Tuesday.
Yeah, so-
They're different things.
Oh, there's 2 different downtown coalitions.
a group of private citizens that have kind of like come together.
And this is a different one. This is a Downtown Public Safety Coalition?
No, that's the same one.
Okay.
Let
See,
me
so we're
jump
not
in.
even aware,
Let
but
me
I will
jump
say
in.
this is the official body that comes to council.
Yeah,
So please make this body aware too.
So the difference is that that's a group of citizens talking to businesses. What we're trying to do is to get the institutional aspects together in the same room with those businesses. That's what this body can do, that a coalition of public safety,
Both are great, yeah.
you know, is gonna have. So we would want to work with them, and basically what we're looking at, or at least I'm jumping ahead of you, Stephen Lee, I'm sorry, is having people like Ben Woody in the room, maybe not Chief Zach, but somebody like that from APD. But we're really looking not just like you said at enforcement, but at broader initiatives and say, okay, look, here's what the city's heard and is doing. Then maybe break up, have roundtable discussions, and then report back and then say, okay, now here's what they said the city's doing, here's what's still not being done, here's some options on some other things we'd like to see these people do. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So the thing that the Downtown Commission can do is that we can request from staff institutional updates that a set of concerned citizens can do, but it's a little, that's what we're for.
And it sounds like we can invite them to.
Absolutely.
this.
Absolutely.
100%,
That's the whole
point.
point. Like, this
That's-
could be,
yeah.
that's why we're looking at large venues, because it seems like, I think that the one the chamber did, Biltmore Avenue was probably 40 people or something. And that wasn't the goal, but if we need a 200 space venue to do this, let's do it. It needs to be discussed.
And I've attended a lot of public safety meetings over the past 2 years, and I would say that my probably biggest ask or recommendation would be maybe instead of so much venting and public comment, to ask people to come prepared with recommendations or what they would like to see happen. So then while we have city staff, we can say like, okay, here are the community paramedics, here's what they can do. Can we call them to clear doorways if we're scared? Can we call them? And then we can have those things instead of 10 people, telling us what they see every day. So then it's almost like a
Productive.
workshop, work
Yeah.
session, productive, and we can keep it positive instead of.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Part of, yes, Asheville Lab. Part of our discussions at the subcommittee have sounded like what you
Exactly
just
that.
said, which is that the gripe sessions and the gnashing of teeth and tearing out of beards has been well documented, I think. And we are really going to try to frame this as more of a solicitation and an invitation to the public for ideas. And for ideas for teamwork between, not just folks with business interests, but folks with more cultural interests in downtown and living interests in downtown as well, to get more of these together. Because the chamber's really good at talking about business. I don't think they're that great about talking about quality of life and other programs that might, for instance, benefit individual entrepreneurs rather than more your bigger businesses. So this is a place as a public body where we can influence our democratic institutions. We can hopefully influence our public resources to come together. So a much broader meeting than any other single institution or group of concerned citizens can have. We are looking to have cross a much broader net, I think. But yeah, absolutely, more about solicitation of ideas and invitations to the public, rather than can we complain about what we all see and know. Like I've heard it.
Go ahead, Ms. Dana.
Hey, thanks. Just to add one thing, and it's like a little bit obvious, but I think it's just worth reminding everyone as this body, we have several new members. I'm not shutting anything down, Chair. This body meets monthly, right? And there's a suggestion made, like, where can people, maybe something should be done regularly. And I just want to remind us all that this venue does exist and we do take public comment. And part of what your roles are is to represent other stakeholder groups and make sure that could look like convening sometimes, but that looks like bringing, informing this body and informing the institutional representatives that you have here through this existing venue. So I just want to remind you all, half this body wasn't aware of this other group, and moving forward, just keep that in mind, that this is a place to come and convene and to share.
Which honestly is why we recommended the two new folks to be the two new folks. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Well, we really needed to hear from businesses specifically, I felt like this time.
Yeah.
And since the design review is so expert now, we're good on that end.
So I think our challenge now is to develop a very clear agenda for a meeting, if the commission would like for the subcommittee to do that.
Yes,
And then
please.
also make a final decision on what the availability of a venue is.
So if I can recap, make sure I'm understanding what I've heard. One is that there's already other subgroups that are working on this, specifically the chamber, and is it the Coalition for Public Safety? Is that the right?
Downtown
I'll
something.
have to look at the
Yeah.
If you don't
official
mind, if you don't
name.
mind sharing that with us so that we.
Asheville Coalition for Public Safety.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank
Oh,
you, Megan.
Asheville Coalition for Public Safety.
Okay,
I haven't even heard of it.
It's very grassroots. It's actually a retired gentleman whose wife opened a store, and he's concerned for her public safety going
Oh, I got an
to
email
work
from
every
him.
day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So, yes, we would like the subcommittee to continue to work. I agree with the timeline before the end of May to keep the momentum, as has been previously stated. As has been previously stated, that this is not a gripe session, but a means to move towards further engagement, and specifically between the creation of public safety, not necessarily just the enforcement of it, between the institutional apparatus of the city of Asheville and the broader community, including business interests as well as other interests. And that the attendee list will be based on that developed agenda, correct?
And I intend to, make sure that invitations to elected officials go out as well.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
to a broad range of public, including people who work downtown.
Well,
And
I
to
mean,
the
that's
committee-
something we would want Ben to be involved with. I mean, what, you got 4 hats on right now, so there's like 4
At
different
least 6,
departments in
7.
here right now.
He's the director of everything.
But
But I do want to encourage on staff's behalf that as you make this agenda, that we touch base with it, because staff support, is often challenged because we're all understaffed. But also that it's there in line and supportive of what's happening, because this is, again, a group effort. But
So,
we don't want to put them in a hot seat, of,
agreed,
Yeah.
agreed. And we don't want to make staff have to do it. So I would be very supportive of having a private venue versus a public venue, just so that we take some load off staff, if that meets everybody
I think there are
else's
more
need. What do you
private,
think
large
about that?
locations too. I mean, there are, some of these hotels have conference rooms that might help, or, we don't have a lot of big meeting space.
We had some of the discussion, we thought that public space
Would be better.
would be, but just from this as a city, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Chair, we're happy to try to find a public space for you. It's a public meeting, a
Yep.
meeting of the downtown commission. So if you want to talk with us offline, we can do that.
Yeah,
I
I
was
would
thinking
say,
that a private space will come with some agenda to it, and I think if we're trying to
Everybody
say.
agree with that? Is that?
I would
That's kinda
suggest that
different.
public space may be seen as more neutral by a lot
Yeah.
of people.
I agree.
And,
Okay.
And more welcoming to
And
folks.
we could probably, we can look into tech and things like that, so it's transparent,
Yeah.
as transparent as possible.
Well, it's
Especially
gonna
if
be-
you get
we're
a
gonna be
majority
there, so
council
it's gonna technically be if we're all there, it's an official meeting.
And council can attend as invitees. Simply, if more than 4 of us attend an invited event, it does not make it a public meeting. We go to luncheons together, it doesn't, we are allowed to be in the same space at the same time.
So in terms of timeline, there is a lot going on over the next couple of months. We have Pack Square and we have the outdoor dining updates. We have Project Aspire, but I think staff, we can go back and look at options in terms of venue, in terms of participation and whatnot. I just want to offer, and not to put him on the spot, Ben, do you have any comments you want to share about our next steps to consider, support and when we might be able to?
I think it's a great discussion, and I think we can support the efforts. One thing I'll say is we can pull in people other than just the planning department, so we don't have to put all this in Dana and staff, so.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And it probably trumps things like the outdoor dining space, although outdoor dining space is one of the best ways to activate and therefore deter crime. But, I think the onus is on us right now to move and keep the momentum. I would say prioritize.
I will say, I really give some credit to the Asheville Watchdog for their
Absolutely.
attention on this, because there's been some things that I've seen and observed for a long time, and the needle hasn't really moved until the series.
I'm amazed and thankful, and I've learned a lot from their
And,
articles.
yeah, and not just on this topic, I think they're doing fantastic work that I really support that. It's just a proof that we need, our media improves us. Our good
It's been
media
helpful.
improves the process, the outcomes, everything. And every city in America is hurting from lack of media, and Watchdog has been,
It's amazing.
have really been a blessing for
They have
for
more
us. So,
coming.
no
I
offense
think
to
there's
Citizen
9
Times.
total. Now,
We
I
just
think there's
need
gonna be
more-
9
we
on
just need
downtown.
more journalist boots on the ground.
So it sounds like then, Chair Moffett, we have marching orders.
Yes.
Work with staff to determine the best date and venue
Yes.
and prepare an agenda. And then likely before our next meeting, distribute to everybody on the commission that information.
Yes, and I'll say one last thing, and then we'll move on. Don't try to get it perfect. We don't have to do this once. We can do this more than once. Let's just get a good event put together, and then we can come back and do another one in the fall if that's necessary. Agreed? Very good. Thank you very much. That was a good discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move in, again, we got 6 minutes, but we can do it. Updates and reports, DRC. Stephen Lee?
We did not meet
And
last
we're,
time.
and we're meeting next week, and you already know what we're meeting about. Awesome. Asheville Downtown Association. Jessica.
Yep. We continue our search for a new executive director. The first downtown after 5 is next Friday, April 21st, so that'll be a lot of fun. And then we have our first Building Our City Speaker Series event on April 26th from 5:30 to 7 at the Collider. The focus on that series this year is housing, and that specific discussion will be missing middle housing, thinking big, building small to respond to today's housing crisis. So you can get a ticket for that on Eventbrite.
Awesome. Thank you. Robin, you're up.
There's a link to the report, so I won't go through everything, but I do want to highlight that there's 2 learning opportunities to learn more about what Housing First is. One on April 25th, one on April 27th, and I've linked the registration there. So if you're interested, check it out.
Cool. Thank you. Andrew, we just talked about your whole thing, Public Space Management Task Force.
Yeah, we'll just really, on that, specifically right now, the Public Space Management Task Force has been working on outdoor dining and street reads. And I'm really happy to see that it seems like we're getting close to a finish line on that. And this also does plug into that greater idea of public safety and, and what the city can do to support private uses that are positive and engage the public in good ways, and provide amenities for both businesses and for customers and pedestrians of that. So we're getting pretty close to that. We've had, our last meeting was really constructive. We got some good feedback. I know Dana's had a couple meetings recently with some folks, and getting close to getting that over the finish line. And hopefully that is going to be the outdoor dining and streetery function of it is probably going to be one of the more complicated pieces to get through. Hopefully other features that we talk about in public space management, we can be built off of that using some of the template of those things. So once we get this one, if we get this one over, hopefully that's going to create some new low-hanging fruit to grab as far as new stuff. So it's all kind of different fingers on the same glove, I would say.
I think, Dana, are you next? No.
Councilwoman Turner, I know you have to leave. Do you want to do your updates first?
I was really only going to share about the design guidelines,
Okay.
but let me get a cheer. Woo!
All right.
All right, good morning, everyone. We have a little bit more overlap from the ADA board now, so some of this will be repetitive with what you heard at your board meeting this week, but wanted to continue to provide a few updates again that were included in your report last month. There's some new resources available on the city's website. some guidance for businesses related to public safety, as well as updated information on addressing and reporting issues related to homelessness. So please check those out. Pax Square Plaza visioning. So we do have an updated timeline. We're pushing things by about a month. So we anticipate being able to have a preview of the plan for you all. That was going to happen today, but it's going to happen at the next meeting. And then coming for a formal recommendation at your June meeting. And it'll be available to the public the Monday after your meeting. There'll be an online opportunity for the public to give input on that draft plan. Go ahead.
Won't it be public if it's in our meeting?
Yeah, I don't know what the preview will look like exactly, but yes.
I mean, it'll be a public document, but it'll probably just say draft or something. I don't know.
So I'm not sure. Maybe we do a presentation with some key points.
Or do a presentation and explain to you what the contents look like.
Perfect, okay. I just was like, wait a minute.
Fair.
Keep going, sorry.
College Patent Bike Lane meeting. Want to make sure you all have the details of this meeting. It's happening next week, Wednesday, the 19th, from 3 to 7 p.m. It's an opportunity for the general public and specifically for corridor stakeholders to give input. We are going to have some big maps out. There's going to be different staff people there, including emergency services, APD, and fire department. Staff will be there to really look at specific issues and specific spaces and really to dig in on some of the loading concerns and see what's possible. So again, 3 to 4 p.m. is for corridor-specific stakeholders. We encourage those folks to stick around for the public portion, but that will be held at the Collider Overlook Lounge. So we'll have the big windows. We can look, at some of these areas that we are, where the bike lanes would be. So downtown parking, just continuing to provide a link to monthly parking availability here. Downtown public restroom, I do have one small substantive update, and that is that the city selected Osgood Landscape Architecture for design services which will take place this spring and summer. There will be the public restroom facility as well as improvements to that public space with public safety as a top priority in mind with that design work.
Dana, can I surprise public restrooms, my favorite topic? We talked at, I think it was the space committee meeting where we asked if there might be an option to do the actual restroom construction first and the park improvements later. Has that been considered?
I don't think that's possible. I don't think it would, we need a safe space and an accessible, the restroom needs to be accessible, the surrounding space needs to be safe. It's also federal funding. I don't think we can piece out the scope in that way. So I'm just going to say no.
Good job.
I would like to add, I think my understanding of it is exactly what you're saying. I do think that we do need to come up with what the plan is for that. If it's a 3-year window, if it's a 5-year window, because the upcoming public restroom is really, unfortunately, going to serve a fairly narrow part of the community. And that's just the fact, folks. So we need to know, citizens need to know when the former very nice facility that was built in 2004, when can that be back online?
You're talking about the one out front?
One on Haywood.
Oh, the 29 Haywood.
Oh, the one on Haywood?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother beast, y'all.
Yeah.
We got all types of infrastructure issues
Right.
there.
Yeah.
But we have this one at the pavilion.
Right. When is that going to be open?
It's open.
Yeah.
Or when is?
But I don't think people fully realize, at some point Dana made a map herself of all the restrooms and their hours. We might just want to publicize that again and check and see that everybody's
actually a
open.
good idea.
Again, information sharing. People have no idea. I think COVID made us all check out in a different way.
Yeah.
People are just not aware. But yeah, we have public restrooms open, yeah.
to share.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
And certainly
yeah,
part of the
that
public
is-
safety stuff, right?
Yeah, good idea.
Great. I will make sure the
Yeah.
map is up to date
Yeah.
and share that out with you all. And I know ADA had it on their window, and we can try to do better to get the word out. It is on some of the resources I referenced on the homelessness resources. We try to get the word out, but we could use your help. Okay.
I want to share one thing about parking, since you hit on parking for a second. You know, for decades, there was like a 600-person wait list on parking decks for the city of Asheville. And when COVID hit, that dramatically changed. There are actually open spaces right now, but I am seeing them get grabbed up. And we're going to be quickly on a wait list again soon. Some decks already are. So if you're a business in downtown or a resident in downtown, if you've always wanted one of those spaces, this is probably your last window for a while. If you have friends that are looking, or resident, just spreading the word.
Yeah, that's a good flag. I had updated this report just now. I didn't update the agenda, but I just wanted to provide a link to a new program that the city's going to be piloting, Community Responder Program. What I do have is our presentations that have been shared with City Council and with the Public Safety Committee. They intend to launch that program May 1st, and they will be supporting existing efforts, I know, coordinating with the county and assisting people experiencing homelessness and people in crisis situations. So look forward to sharing more information on that. I'm sure that'll be a very relevant update to be able to provide at a public safety focused meeting that you all are working towards. But yes, I will link to that presentation. Once you leave, you'll see it on this report. Let's see, we talked a little bit about outdoor dining. We've been meeting with different stakeholder groups. We're going to go to a representative group from AIR next week. We're getting a notice out to all existing permit holders and setting up a meeting with them. And we look forward to either coming to you all for a formal recommendation in May or June, we wouldn't launch the actual new permitting process until January 2024 is when it would be in effect. So we do want to build in time to get information out to everybody, but I think there's some flexibility. Carter and Patton stormwater. I know the city has been communicating extensively with folks in that area and coordinating that construction activity. Just looking ahead to, later in May, late May, where we anticipate the project will hit Patton Avenue. And there will be more general impacts at that time to traffic as well as to sidewalks on Patton. So we'll continue to keep you all informed. And budget process. So I provided a link to a community engagement report that was presented to council a few weeks ago. We had encouraged you all to take that survey related to budget priorities. The next step of the city council held a budget workshop this past Tuesday, and the next step in the process is that a draft budget is going to be published on May 5th. The public hearing for the budget is scheduled for May 23rd. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got anything?
This is just a very quick. Downtown public restrooms, Grove Arcade, City Hall, River Arts District. That's not downtown, but where?
Park Pavilion, Transit Center.
Yes.
Transit Center, Park Pavilion. And it's open all
And
of those
library
hours.
during
There's
the
actually
library's
still some
business hours.
porta-johns out there.
Library, public library.
And there's one porta-john.
And there's
And
some
what?
porta-johns still out. Yeah.
There's a porta-john.
Oh, porta, okay.
But,
gotcha.
yeah, I think you got it.
I was just trying to get my head. Thank
We
you.
list the county and city's facilities. We don't list Grove Arcade, but it is also
Okay.
available publicly.
I wonder if that's something we should have in parking decks. Interesting location. We kind of do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're good, thank you. Okay, and Sage already gave her city council update, yes? Feel
Yeah,
good about
unless you
that?
have any specific questions for me.
I don't think so. Do we need to have any informal discussion? So we'll continue to discuss the outdoor dining update. Obviously, Pack Square visioning is going to be a pretty big piece coming up in the agenda. And just to reiterate for our new folks, if there's something that is you want to see on the agenda, just let me and Dana know, basically, and we'll make sure we get it on there. It's pretty simple. I think the rest of y'all know that, I hope. I think I've been ignoring emails, but that would be why I wouldn't know. So with that, are there any other items that we need to discuss? Wonderful. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, get up and leave. Thank you very much. Good discussion.
What do all you new folks think? You're relatively new too. I enjoyed all